Welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody, for the week of November 7th.
Wait.
Okay.
Everybody?
I mean, I don't want to name names.
Okay.
Which might actually come back during this show. I'm Ryan Miller. That was Matt Amberg, a blast of silence himself, all on his own. And on Book Club for Movies, we usually watch one movie a week. And after doing that, you can find us at podcast at bookclubformovies.com, Facebook, Twitter, or Patreon. Again, if you also have seen the movie, you can comment. In fact, if I were to do a little housekeeping up front, I would say if you went to Patreon, you would see the first in a new series of BCFMs by myself, wherein I talk about the Bob's Burgers movie. Just real quick. Yeah, I think we top out at 5 minutes on that one. So that seems interesting. I think every now and then one of those might make it out to the public on YouTube, but for now, Patreon only.
Tubes.
Yes. Or unlisted, and then...
Or as I like to call it, fun-listed.
Well, you haven't heard the episode yet.
That's true.
No, it is actually, but I did, yeah. Spoiler,
it is bad.
You're like,
it's terrible. Don't watch it. But definitely, I mean, subscribe and like and make smash buttons.
Please. This week, we've begun a brand new themed month, as we've done. We've just gone absolutely nutso with the themed months this year. We did August for August.
Which maybe next year we should do August for July, just to mix things up.
No, because we do July Kwando. Well, I guess it doesn't matter.
Gosh, I'm a fool.
It's kind of during my birthday month, so it always feels like a gift to me.
No, it's
but we could,
sure,
we could switch months. I don't care.
Well, okay, maybe we make August something in May.
Or April, even when the holiday isn't that Valentine's? No, February.
Valentine's Day is in February traditionally. Yeah.
And then we did most recently Octoberween. You can go find all of our beautiful movies there for the month of Octoberween, the original themed month, wherein you get some. I tell you what, I've recently rewatched Deadstream. I did show it to my wife and daughter. It's strange. I feel like I missed a bunch that they got on the first time around, and because they were laughing it up. Like, and I obviously smiled, and I really liked Deadstream. Go listen to the show, but they were like laughing out loud at parts where I was like, "Yeah, that is funny." But at the time, I was like, I don't remember like laughing. But the second time around, I was like, maybe it's just the effect of enjoying it with somebody. But I enjoyed Deadstream even more the second time around. That is a fun freaking movie.
It's so fun, right? Like, I'm so glad that Candy, and Evelyn found that probably the same jokes that I did, which got you into that. Okay. Evelyn, I'm allowed to laugh out loud at a horror movie that's ridiculous.
And we were, like we said, the monsters are just perfectly done. So my wife she said she did close her eyes through a lot of it. She doesn't like, it's not gore again, but it's the rubbery monster thing. There are monsters. There are named monsters that you see in this movie. But Evelyn she brings the pillow up over like just below her eyes. I've noticed, but watches, does not close them. So. Good stuff.
Good for her.
Yes, go check out Octoberween. Stay for Noirvember, where we do just a bunch of classics, and I've already spoken too much up front because I want to get into it. For Blast of Silence, but before maybe even the synopsis, you tell me. I want to give a little background, both on my past with the subject, but also just in general, if that's okay with you.
I accept your terms.
Okay. Want to make sure. You're in charge of the upfront. You got the synopsis, and I want to step on any toes.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm glad that we've established what I have domain over here. My dominions are well known to me, old man.
So one of the reasons I am so excited to talk about this, though, actually, is because film noir is literally the genre they use. I mean, most places use it. It's the genre they used to teach me about genres, period. It's also one of the more recognizable ones. Sometimes even if a movie isn't just black and white, somebody will be like, oh, it's a film noir, like it's...
I mean, in the literal sense, maybe.
Right. But that's one of the things. It's I think, one of the more recognizable, even though I guess there's plenty of arguments still going on as to whether it's a genre or a style, which we're not going to participate in. Oh, you might. I don't know. But for my money...
Ha-ha! The fight begins!
It'll be immaterial to what I enjoyed, because Well, number one, I hope to communicate some of the enjoyment I had in the moment when I learned about it. But also, I think it's really going to come in handy when we get to the movie at hand here for a very specific reason. And not just because I think there's some deeper meaning, although I feel like there might be some pushback with that necessarily when it comes to film noir, because it is a very kind of on-your-face genre. Like, we're talking about Pulp Fiction largely, right?
Sure.
Like almost fiction for fiction's sake, where the metaphors are heavy, the dialogue is very direct, everything just kind of is what it is on the surface.
Bum, bum, bum.
Right. I just want to go through a few hallmarks or staples of the genre. You will often get a protagonist on the outskirts, right? It's usually a private detective, maybe, although, okay, it isn't actually usually, but these are some of the more recognizable tropes. You'll get if it's a policeman, it's usually a plainclothes, somebody that's still operating maybe outside normal lines, it may be a gangster.
It's a detective.
Yes. And the reason being is that our protagonist, oftentimes, if not all of the time, is flawed in some way that has put him on the outskirts, And feel free to tell me to shut up at any point. I am trying to get this out quickly, but again, I don't want to steamroll as always.
Excuse me, class. Speaker, let's listen.
Okay. And as will often come with our flawed protagonist, he will often get trapped within his own web of deceit and lies, or at the very least, he will contribute or exacerbate what are usually pretty convoluted stories, as is, often set in labyrinthine locations, aka like, downtown New York or LA or San Francisco, something like that. In fact, one of the more interesting points that Wikipedia makes is that the convoluted stuff and all that has led to many neo-noirs being kind of at the forefront of structural experimentation. If you think of like Pulp Fiction or Fight Club or Memento, that are also very convoluted, but kind of in different ways. But yeah, I don't think we'll get a ton into neo-noirs. We might start, again, for a very specific reason, but we'll get there. Like I already mentioned, they are typically, black and white. They are typically actually, visually dark movies, even though I think that's almost a funny qualifier because the movies themselves usually deal in very gray areas,
It's what black and white make together.
But also just visually speaking, like movies of this time, when they got started, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, didn't usually, put their main characters front and center in shadow. They lit the stars. But that goes right along with the usually dark subject matter, of course. We're going back to a time when murder was still shocking. Think of seeing somebody die on screen and being taken aback by it, if you can. But also movies, as always, reflect the times, 40s, 50s. We're coming from World War II, really messed a whole generation up or two.
Ever so slightly. There was just some concern there.
The nuclear families were essentially falling apart, even if they too were kind of pushed as the ideal, or however you want to put that, actual nuclear proliferation was going on, so a lot of times you'll hear noirs referred to as a very pessimistic genre. Not a whole lot of positive outlook going on. There are definitely exceptions. In fact, I should say there are exceptions to all of these things, especially as time went on. And in the moment, when all of this was happening, it's not like they even, it's a zeitgeist thing. Noirs were defined retrospectively, right? Even the term, I feel like that, I think it was used in 45, but wasn't like adopted. Like nobody at the time was going around being like, I'm making a noir film. Look at this, that didn't happen until much later, right?
It was the 70s is when that became, when the term became such a widespread concept. But you're right. It was about 1940. It was 1946 with a French critic named Nino Frank.
There you go. And again, the reason I'm talking about any of this is because I think it is going to matter quite a bit for the film we are doing. In fact, Blast of Silence. Matt, do you have a synopsis for this before I get back into the weeds, back into my own convoluted story? with this movie?
I don't know if I want to do it. You're on a roll. I'm enjoying the film class I'm taking. I'm kind of taking some notes here. Like,
I'm telling you, I love this stuff.
I'm not being facetious.
Okay.
Like, I feel bad that I have to do this. Like, I'm not excited to do this now. Like, I didn't know.
No. This will be perfect. You do the synopsis. I will blow it wide open.
All right, let's get it clinical. Let's get clinical up in this B. All right, fine. Blast of Silence coming at you an hour and 17 minutes. Written by Alan Barron and Waldo Salt. By the way, what a name. Waldo Salt used the screen name Mel Davenport for this movie. So either way, he wins in the cool
Win-win.
name department. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, written by Alan Barron and Waldo Salt as Mel Davenport. Directed by Alan Barron, starring Alan Barron, Molly McCarthy, Larry Trucker, Peter Clune, and Danny Meehan. Here's your book club for movie synopsis for Blast of Silence. So there you are, watching the story of a man who grew up hard, gambles lives away for money, maybe even his own if the price is right. You're enjoying this. You see a spark of life in this killer's eyes, and all you can do is hope for just one more moment before that blast of silence.
So good. Toe to toe with the actual writing for this film, maybe. Very nice.
I wanted to stick with it. It was so good.
It's fun, isn't it? Isn't it
Dude,
just fun?
Get this next part out because I want to start talking about this movie.
Okay.
Go.
So
I'm
one of the
punching.
reasons I think all of what we talked about so far is going to be especially useful for this is because we're actually starting at the kind of tail end of the whole noir thing, or at least the first wave, maybe. This is a movie made in 1961 that some people do classify as the first neo-noir. So a lot of what we've already talked about has been codified. It is made by somebody, Alan Barron, who is looking back on what has already happened for, 20 years or so. And I think does some pretty interesting things with those tropes, which we'll come back to. But when it comes to the film itself, again, we came to it by way of Ed Brubaker on an episode of How Did This Get Made? But I think, if I remember, I tried to go back and find the episode and I couldn't. It's back behind the paywall. I think it was brought out for they do like Matinee Mondays or something like that.
Curse
That's
them.
what they're called.
It might still be on my phone. I should look.
Yeah, let me know, because I think if I'm piecing together everything correctly, Patton Oswalt might have recommended it to Ed Brubaker, who I know he came up in the conversation. And if you look up on YouTube, there's actually a video of Patton Oswalt who got invited to the archives of the Academy of Arts and Sciences or whatever, and picked Blast of Silence off the shelves and watched the print of it and then talked about it a little bit. There's also a really cool video, Turner Classic Movies, with Eddie Muller. Did a quick little intro, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about is pulled from that. But it is the first movie written and directed by Alan Barron. He did star in a movie before this. He acted in a movie called Cuban Rebel Girls as Al Barron in '59, apparently. And I wanted to look at more about this, but didn't. He actually came from the comic book realm. He was a comic book artist.
Oh.
And Eddie Muller says that's why he had such an eye for editing and composition. But again, I didn't get to delve into that. But it is the first thing he wrote and directed, the first feature. In fact, he didn't do many more after that. He had a long and storied career in television, but the only other features he made were Terror in the City, Outside In, and Foxfire Light. So he kept the perfect movie name streak going.
Yeah, nailed that.
All pretty strong.
Good job, Al.
And as you mentioned, he does play baby boy Frankie Bono out of Cleveland.
Baby boy Frankie Bono out of Cleveland, Ohio. Coming to New York.
But
just got to do a little job.
He did originally write the part for his friend, Peter Falk.
That would have been just one more thing.
But he got a paying job, apparently, because that's the other thing about this, is that he only started, Alan Barron, with $2,800, shot some test footage that he showed to the right person, and was able to secure the rest of the $18,000 it took to make this film only. So shoestring budget, all indie, borrowed equipment, guerrilla shot everything without a permit, all on location, which works for noirs, right? That is not
Totally.
outside of the realm. Like this is what you're going to see regardless, budget or no.
Yeah.
So it was perfect for him in a way, or, maybe even purposeful. He knew he wasn't going to have a lot of financing, so he chose a genre that he knew wasn't going to require a lot of money and with him in the main role, which I will say, I think it is obvious he hasn't done a lot of acting. Still does perfectly fine.
At the beginning, there's a couple of bits where you can see it just stands out where and they're probably, my guess is early. They were actually early shots. Like
I wouldn't be surprised if this was shot mostly
because as the movie goes, like sequentially,
thank you.
as the movie continues, he certainly gets more comfortable, and it goes like I noted that specifically that the first couple of scenes with him, yikes, he's not good, and then immediately gets to a point where like, okay, he's fine now.
But it also works because the movie builds. And a lot of the reason it does, I think it's very well paced. I do think much of it is purposeful because that writer you spoke of, Waldo Salt, the reason he did write here as Mel Davenport is because he was blacklisted during the time of
the McCarthyism,
the Red Scare, all that stuff.
Yeah, he's up there with what's his name, Dalton Trumbo.
Yeah, but Salt did make a comeback. Like he did come back into good graces. In fact, so much so that he wrote Midnight Cowboy. I think he won might have won the Oscar for Midnight Cowboy.
That's a good one.
Yeah, Serpico, Coming Home, all him. So yeah, he bounced back in a big way.
Yeah, he did.
The narrator also blacklisted, Lionel Stander, who it says was actually probably blacklisted for the longest period of any actor, maybe, which I think it's strange. He was fully uncredited in this movie, but how would you not know? Like, just, I didn't recognize his voice. Like, I didn't hear it and be like, oh, that's Lionel Stander. But he sounded like somebody he sounds like somebody you instantly recognize.
That voice is, it totally sounds, yes, absolutely.
Instantly iconic, right? Yeah. But he was also a very prolific actor. He was doing stuff from 1931 to 1995. He was in the original Mr. Deeds in 1936.
Oh yeah, with Jimmy Stewart.
And the original A Star Is Born in 1937.
Jimmy Stewart.
Been around a big long time. In fact, when it came to him being blacklisted, he was famously known for basically just telling them all to stuff it. It's probably one of the reasons he was blacklisted for longer than everybody else, because every time he did get in front of anybody, and he forced himself in front, oftentimes he sued some people for slander and stuff like that. But anytime he showed up in front of somebody, he would just... there's so many quotes on Wikipedia that it's all great. Go look them up. Seems fantastic. And is fantastic in this movie, Blast of Silence. Matt, I'll shut up and we'll start talking about it. Because, if you haven't guessed by now, I think it's fantastic.
We ended that movie and all I said was, holy crap, Beth. And she goes, yeah, that was a good movie. And I'm like, yes, that was a good movie. Like, that was not the appropriate response to the quality of that film, my love.
I mean, just from this is the very, very, very first line in the movie. So no spoilers, but man, remembering out of the black silence, you were born in pain. And then it continues on.
So good. And okay, we get about 5 minutes in, I'll give it 5 minutes. It probably was less, but I'm going to say 5 minutes. And throughout this 5 minutes, the main character that we've seen has not really spoken more than a couple of lines at most. And it's been a whole bunch of narration. And I totally was like, I hope the narration is for the whole movie. I hope this is just the whole movie. Barely any conversation from him, little dialogue, all of it there. I want that. And boy, oh boy, was I shocked and surprised and tickled when that ended up being the frickin' movie. So good. The amount, like, yes, there's more dialogue in it. You certainly get more, but it is so much narration and it's so good. And the way it's narrated, and man, this movie was so cool. Whoa, so cool.
It is. It stands up to all of the praise. It's the more videos I watch, the more we're like, oh, it was an unknown gem, or like something that, because at the time it didn't review well and all that stuff.
So glad that I never heard of this movie. This is totally one of those,
right?
Amazing. Yes. I love when this happens.
Yeah, this is the perfect example of that.
Yeah.
And it's more than just the narration, but to continue talking about the narration, all in second person. And according to, again, Eddie Moeller, I think it was, the Turner Classic Movies guy, he doesn't know, I certainly don't know of any other movie that's done so, but he also didn't. So I'm in good company. I can't think of another movie that is completely narrated in the second person. It's all you did this, you're going here.
Love it.
And it totally fits with, again, I think, what is the directness of this genre. It does take on a different character towards the end of the movie, I think, when, baby boy Frankie Bono out of Cleveland, which I will say the entire thing every
That's
time,
right, baby boy Frankie Bono out of Cleveland,
becomes further embroiled again in his own, I guess, in his own mind, really. There's not so much the story here isn't as convoluted as other examples, but certainly within his mind, and as that gets externalized, he does, kind of go off the deep end.
Sure.
And the more that happens, it's kind of, the narration takes on this character of him almost trying to convince himself, especially the part where it's like he walks by a building and he's like, you could have been an architect. And he says that twice. I'm like, no, you couldn't have. Like, this guy's, it just becomes increasingly desperate because of the circumstances.
Yes.
Even if the timbre doesn't exactly change. It's so good. They do so much with it.
And one of the things I also want to mention here is that I love is because I that narration, while it's using that second person, it's very clearly supposed to be him and him conversing, to me anyway,
right,
in his head,
yeah.
right? I love that voice is absolutely not him. And it wasn't him, right? He's not the one who did the narration.
No, the narration was Lionel. Yeah.
Right. So I kind of love that because it also adds a layer of him having a totally different view of what's happening in his head.
Sure, yeah. Disconnected, kind of in a way.
Completely.
Yeah. Out of control, even at times, yeah. It's a movie that really makes use of montage, and not in the way that Rocky did necessarily. This was another fun moment for me in film school when they start talking about montage, and Eisenstein and stuff like that. They weren't talking about the way I knew it, was that, a bunch of cool images set to a neat song or something like that. They're talking about the juxtaposition of images in a way that changes the meaning of either one,
Sure.
This is a movie that appears to do that with, again, the narration, the images. Again, the plot's pretty straightforward, but things take on their own meaning because of the way everything's playing off of each other.
Yeah, no, and I think part of that, and I think that also, I think it stems from kind of some of the smart writing in the script where all of those things are kind of coming apart because he's breaking his own rule, right? The entire movie is based around, this all would have gone perfectly fine if he had just followed his rules, but he didn't follow his rule. His rule, number one, he was told you can't be seen by anybody. So his major rule was don't talk to people, don't get involved. And what did he do? He talked to people, he got involved. And that's the stuff that leads down those little pathways, opening up what you're talking about, I think.
Yeah, and that's also the movie. Like,
yeah.
Or at least I was. You're almost fooled. I'm talking in second person. You're almost fooled at the beginning when it's about the hit more than anything. He meets with some handlers, he gets some directions, stuff like that. You think this is going to be a movie about this hit that he's going about, but pretty soon he's already cased the subject, or however you want to put that. He's already found out the movements of the guy he's going to kill, so he has like 24 hours to kill. So he goes into town. It's a few minutes, especially for a movie that's just an hour and 17 minutes.
Yes.
He's walking in front of he walks in front of 30 Rock. Like I recognized even. It's Christmas time, also, by the way.
Hilariously, it's very Christmas time. Obviously, it's October. When they shot this,
and I wonder if it was even written in, or if that's just when they had to make the movie. So I mean, they definitely talk about it, but yeah, if they were just like, I have to make it now, it doesn't seem like he was waiting again. Like,
yeah, no. When he shows up in New York, and it's supposed to be like the day before Christmas, and there is no snow on the ground, nobody's walking around, it's not no.
True. Yeah,
this is you just rolled in on September 18th and it happened to be a school day, bro. But you give, again, you have to kind of go with it, and they make up for it later on with some visual
Yeah,
stuff,
but that's also when you clue in that that's the movie. The movie is baby boy Frankie Bono out of Cleveland, and it turns out came up as an orphan in New York. So upon returning, these memories are flooding back. He does run into somebody from the orphanage is where it comes from. And he does end up at that person's house during a party because, yes, he breaks some of his rules there. After trying to walk away twice, the guy convinces him because his sister was an old flame of his. And another one of the tropes, another one of the tropes you'll see often, although doesn't pop up that much, is kind of why I skipped by it too, is the femme fatale, right? Mm-hmm. The girl that walks into the private detective's office and gives him a job or a mystery, but is also compromised, obviously, in some way, is very familiar with the ways of the world in some way. That's not done here.
That's Ryan's way of saying she a whore.
If the girl in this movie is the femme fatale, she is kind of occupying that space. If you do, again, want to attribute Alan Barron to doing a little bit more with what he knew was already out there, she is not compromised in any way. She is the most innocent probably in the entire movie. Maybe her brother also too, but certainly she figures into the movie a little bit more. And he thoroughly screws it up with her. He sexually assaults her, basically. Not in any graphic way. Like the whole scene lasts, 30 seconds or something like that. But still hard to watch.
And he's forcing himself on her and forcing himself to kiss her and trying to get. It's still rough. Yeah.
It's sufficiently bad. Yes, to be like, it's probably actually the first mistake that he makes. I would point to 3 real mistakes that he makes that kind of envelop him in that classic convoluted story. Not convoluted story, but again, that's often part of these movies where the protagonist really traps himself in the inner workings of what's going on, right? He does something to screw it up. That would be mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, if we're going to talk about Ralphie eventually, he ends up killing him in kind of a fit of passion because it seems like Ralphie was also going to blackmail him. But again, after that, he calls his handlers and he's like, I want out. I had to kill this guy, blah, 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 and they're not into it. Mistake number 3 was probably the actual hit, which he does complete and think he'll get paid for, even though his handlers were quite explicit that he was in trouble for wanting to get out. Yeah. So
that phone call was not smart.
No.
I would argue that, potentially one of his other... I don't know that I call it a failing, but definitely misjudgment was not sticking around with Ralphie for a little bit longer because Ralphie just wanted a friend.
Yeah,
Ralphie felt. I feel like Ralphie decides to go off the blackmailing thing because he felt slighted. That's how it felt to me with Ralphie. Which by the way, a character you don't see in movies from that era is that big fat guy with that guy. That particular character. You just don't see that guy, man.
And in a way that's not, because often you'll see larger characters, for some reason I'm thinking of Seven, maybe because it is easily classified as a neo-noir, but where their fatness isn't, it's not a shortcut to slovenly. It's not like, look at this guy. He's automatically he's got to be bad, right? Because he's overweight. Even though he is the guy that, keeps sewer rats as pets and stuff. He's obviously...
Which, I mean...
Kind of the very bad guy steeped in that culture necessarily that baby boy Frankie Bono out of Cleveland isn't so much.
Well, so this jumps back to a moment that I absolutely had a laugh out loud. And I think at the time the movie is made, right, probably not so... it's not as... criminally obvious maybe to the audience as we've gone on longer and now examined films to the nth degree.
But you're saying maybe it wasn't purposefully funny perhaps at the time?
I'm going to say I don't think it was, but okay. I did really laugh at the whole... He walks into the house and what's the first thing he sees? Rats. And like, well, this guy's not a good guy. And it's like, okay, Scorsese, what are we going to do here? Departed. If this guy comes out and is like, hey, what kind of thing you need here, buddy? Like, is he gonna go? We gotta go down and park the car. Like, so I had a whole moment there where I just broke. And Beth was like, what? I'm like, come on, man. The rats, really? Do you think this guy is not going to screw him over in some way?
I mean, the metaphors are heavy, right? That's the thing here.
But I loved it. It was just funny.
Yeah, no,
That's
I
all.
certainly
Like,
loved it. Yes. And it's not like, I'm not saying that's the whole thing. I think that's kind of the weird thing about these movies is that oftentimes they do feel like, especially this one, and I haven't, I should also say, watched a lot of noirs. Like, I don't know, I'm not speaking from experience here, but because of the way it's kind of using montage, it feels like some of the images almost feel incidental to what's going on, to the music, to the narration, right? Like, it is on the one hand, yes, very straightforward. This is what it is, or the metaphors are heavy. But on the other hand, again, yeah, we're just kind of watching him pass in front of these stores for extended periods, or we're watching him, man, the one time, and I would go back and forth, right? The one time where I'm like, I wish this had the narrator is when he's loading that gun to some lonely trumpet music, right before he makes the hit.
Yep.
I'm like, I bet the narrator be saying something really cool right now. But also, this lonely trumpet and this kind of detached, the whole thing is also really working. So I think something I've noticed with the genre in general is that, yeah, it's this weird kind of, it's as if the French New Wave, which was happening concurrently, so this isn't entirely true, filters in through German expressionism by way of all of these, pulp fiction novels that came out of the Great Depression, and then I just explode into a film school fire.
Let me go ahead and again, just because it's somewhat relevant in the current day, if you've never seen, potentially look up the movie Breathless by Godard.
Right. Which totally plays with that, right? The Bogart stuff and all that. Yeah,
everything you're saying, kind of the German expressionism right into the
There's definitely an exchange of ideas going on, for sure.
Definitely, yes. One thing that you mentioned here that we have not talked about, and I have to mention it because I desperately want to get the soundtrack for this movie. The music,
pretty great.
The music in this movie is just jamming the whole time. It is that 60s, late 50s, early 60s up tempo jazz that is complete. It sounds like something that you're waiting for the moment when the car crashes, because that's when they do that every horn goes and there's like a bunch of crashing sounds like in the music. It's like, it's that, man. It's the perfect music for his like driving motion for what he's doing. It's like, it's great. It goes. And then when we get to those moments where things kind of have to ramp down or whatever, again, amazing choices, like with the violinist, it's just a single violinist playing, or the saxophonist, or whatever it was, the horn player.
I think it was a trumpet, yeah, but now you're
trumpet. It might no trumpet player, yeah. Instruments are a lot of them.
Yeah, trumpet. Yeah.
They exist. But those moments are all really well calculated, and then the rest of the film, when it can just be kind of quote unquote background, it's so good, dude. It's freaking good. And I was sitting there, I'm like, we're listening to it, and there are moments in this movie where there are just kind of silence, and it's just the background music. It's maybe a little bit of narration, and then the pause in the narration, and the music is still going, especially at the beginning. And I'm just sitting there like, dude, this movie is doing everything right now. You could not be making any choice that would make this movie bad at this point.
It is. The music's this crazy kind of atonal mess. Like at one point when he's casing the mistress's house where he's going to kill, because he figures out the guy that he needs to do the hit on has a mistress, and he's without his bodyguards at that time, so he's kind of casing that apartment so he'll know the layout. While he's doing it, yeah, it's got some of that atonal, lonely jazz going on, but also
perfect.
Yeah, but also there's some, it sounds like Foley work that's just like somebody rubbing two shoes together, or like sandpaper or something. It's like, it's really strange, but it works so good. Yeah.
It's great. the sound work in this movie, the music, all of it is
also, yeah,
really
I guess we should
works.
even, not even the sound design or the soundscapes or however you want to put that. Yeah. It's not just music.
Do we want to talk about the ending at all? How do you want to do this? Because I admittedly I don't want to, but on the same token, with one of the things that I am excited about, I didn't really respond much to your screed at the beginning where you're like, here's what I'm excited about. But one of the things I am excited about is that as somebody who is typically very cynical, noir movies feel like they are very much made for me. Because it is one of the driving things I love in film, and we've had this conversation before. I prefer every single time the sad ending, the ending that doesn't go right. I want the cynical ending. I don't want the happy ending like for any movie. I want every movie. I don't care. The Naked Gun, it should have gone more cynical at the end. It's too happy. I can't abide it.
Ooh, I want to hear and or write the treatise on how the Naked Gun relates to film noir. Actually,
oh my gosh, I mean, if you want to talk about this, we could do this. If you want to co-author, I mean,
I'm all bark and no bite. Yeah, no, I want somebody else to do it.
You definitely do look like a tree.
Oh,
yeah, you're very woody.
And leave.
it's make like a boat and get off. Wait, I don't know what he says. But the whatever I was saying before is what I think. But to circle all the way back, what I enjoy about these movies, especially, is the thing, and you did mention it. It's the cynicism. I like the pessimism. I like the kind of that going into a movie. My assumption is, either everybody is going to die, or at least the person that I like the most, or the hero, whatever, they're dead. Like they're not going to. Something bad is happening to them. That is almost certainly going to be a thing that I enjoy.
Yeah. So in favor of talking about the ending, let me just say this before we do. Number one, it's not going to ruin anything.
Not even a little bit.
In fact, if you know anything about noirs, you can probably kind of halfway guess it anyway.
Which is also kind of what I was getting at.
Right. And if we've made any point so far, it's that the component parts of this really do come together to make something extraordinary throughout, from beginning to end. So this isn't going to take away from any of that.
Right. Agreed.
But yes, he does, like I said, get into trouble with his handlers, and what he wants to be the payout after completing the hit at the end becomes his ambush and murder. He does die in a pile of mud at the riverbank.
In a pile of mud after being hunted down, thinking he was going to get his money. And at the end of the movie, the narration finishes out, and you definitely it was a moment where I questioned that when we're listening to the narration, was it all from that moment that he's telling us as his life is flashing before his eyes the last little bit, Right.
Yeah. Which isn't unheard of in noirs. Also, there's a few out there where it's narrated by the protagonist that dies in the end of the movie. So the whole movie is narrated by a dead man, that is not rare necessarily. Here, again, it's in second person. So it has maybe the added effect of you wondering if that was him the whole time talking to himself, or really what was going on there. I would still, there's an argument to be had, and again, I would probably read it, but I'm of the mind that it certainly was him still.
Yes, I think it was. I go down that route, but fantastic ending. It had to end that way, and I kind of contrasting it with the opening shot, which is maybe one of the coolest opening shots just to start a movie, with this slow building music, and there's just the dot at the end.
Right.
And I kept looking at it and like, what the hell? Why am I stupid? Why am I not getting this? What am I looking at? And then as soon as you realize, it's a tunnel and there's a train and it punches through, the music hits, the title card, Blast of Silence.
Really great.
And the way this movie does it, and it bookends it with bang and then silence, the blast of silence, and then straight to the ending. Freaking great.
Yeah, really good. In fact, I will even say the directing really came together for me in that last little bit, because I'm not going to say it's completely void of kind of isometric angles, which I don't even know if I'm using that right, but think of Diablo, where
I always do.
The angle is not
the dangle
directly profile or right on. It's
isometric. It's a top view,
and not necessarily
that's at a
from
corner.
up above like Diablo, but yes. I think most of the shots in this, again, to go along with maybe the directness of the dialogue, of the genre, of the imagery, of the metaphors, it is just straight on. We're looking at a straight on, a lot of medium shots of people talking to each other. Again, not a whole lot of angles. There are, now when I say angles, the camera is canted. You'll get lots of really low angles, which again are some staples of film noir. But for the most part, we're watching
Dutch
him walk
angles.
through the town. Yeah, some of those. It's from profile or it's from right on, not lots of isometric stuff, which at the end, when that all comes together, he's running through this, I don't know where it is, but it's on
it's like a dock thing. It's like a really small private
but it's got
dock.
it's abandoned, of course, and there's lots of kind of storefronts about, so it's not like open space. There's lots of boardwalks going in and out, so he's taking these very right angles as he's running away, and they don't communicate real well where he is or where the other people are, which just adds to it. I'm pretty sure that would be purposeful. You're not real clear about who's where at what time. Right. It's just this mess of again, imagery and montage while he's trying to get away, and it's how did you put it? A great ending, fantastic ending,
perfect ending. Yeah, great ending. I love it.
Ending.
All of those are viable responses to it. What you can
also replace ending with movie.
Yeah,
the whole thing was great.
You can't say it's bad.
What a way to start off Noirvember. That's what I say.
Noirvember, it started off so strong. Noirvember, how can we go wrong? I'm sure we can find a way. We'll find another movie that's bad, but this time we're going to go with another one that's celebrated. Oh, right, you're my favorite dad. I don't know, I lost it.
Speaking of surprise endings and pessimistic downers, I would still give it 902 thumbs isometric.
Out of
thoroughly
50 hard-boiled yes.
This rating system is going to also collapse under the weight of its own.
I've given up now. The minute you stop, when you don't do a star, I'm now going a different direction altogether. So, not that the stars held any real value either.
No. We don't care for stars at all here at Book Club for Movies.
That's why we watch movies made by independent filmmakers only.
Exactly. Come back next week for...
Yeah, what is next? I'm excited.
I already said it last week too.
You did, but I don't remember.
Got to look it up every time.
I'm gonna be the you for Noirvember from Octoberween.
Out of the past.
Out of the past. We got a blast of silence. Out of the past. I hope another movie we have has a furnace
I'm starting to
in
recognize the melody from this song. This was made in 1947, so we're right smack dab in it. This is not in any way a neo-noir. And it stars Mr. Robert Mitchum, who you've certainly heard of. You just bought Night of the Hunter, didn't you?
I did just buy Night of the Hunter.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
we could almost watch that for Noirvember as well.
Beth has never seen it, so
really?
Wow. Yeah, that's partially why I bought it. She had no idea about the love hate, the Knuckles, like
yep, that's an all-timer. Yeah,
and there's the with the on the
Radio Raheem. Yeah, no,
yes, and then Radio Raheem shows up in Night of the Hunter, and he's like, "No, man, not love and hate." And it's a whole thing. And Spike Lee is like, "Hey, what's up, guys? Don't forget about Danny Aiello."
I never do. And Jane Greer in Out of the Past, by the way. So
Judy Greer's great grandmother.
Truly?
I have no idea.
Okay, all right. We'll look that up by next week. So come back and check that out.
Wait, what was it called again?
Out of the Past.
Thank you. I'm like, I keep thinking Out of the Furnace, and I'm like, no, that's not it. That one's got Christian Bale in it, I think.
Which it looks like, again, thanks to the Discover feature on Plex here, is available by way of HBO Max subscription.
Oh, nice.
Rent or buy on Amazon for $3 or $10, and Apple TV for the same. But also Google Play, Microsoft Store. So yeah, it's out there. YouTube even. Hey, look at that.
It's out there.
Direct TV if you're above 70.
There's no reason for you to not watch Out of the Past from 1947, starring Robert Mitchum.
Another one we haven't seen, by the way. So.
Another one out, and another one out, and another one we haven't seen.
All right. Now that melody was stolen. I think
I don't think you can prove
we
that.
cannot use stolen music on this podcast, sir. I won't stand for it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Matt, do you have any other movies you want to talk about for the rest of the show?
I kind of do. I kind of do. I can do
one or two.
So kind of, this was really arbitrary. I've been wanting to watch this for a while, and I finally just put it on because why not? Bullet Train, the David Leitch Bullet Train film with Bradley Pitt.
Yeah, this is most recently we talked about J.J. Perry and Day Shift, where he's one of the founding members of 8711, the action design, John Wick, blah blah blah, etc. And David Leitch is the other one of the other founding members of that. So yes,
this is a ridiculous movie. This is one of those.
Okay, good.
So this is one of those flicks that is. I love these movies because it's one of my favorite things when it is a ensemble thing and all the different characters have similar motivations and they're all coming together, but we're getting every perspective. So it's kind of one of those things. We're mostly focused on Ladybug, played by Brad Pitt, who is just coming back into this underworld after some kind of a break. He only does snatch and grab jobs. He's not a killer. He's not like the other guy that was hired to do this job, and he doesn't want to kill anybody. And they were like, well, we only brought him on because, and I can't remember the character's name. It's like Carter or something, I think. So Carter doesn't show up, and they're like, okay, well, we'll get you. And it's just, you just got to grab this briefcase. That's it. So then the entire movie is essentially a thing that surrounds this briefcase and on this bullet train that is headed to Osaka. And so throughout the movie, Pitt has a voice in his ear that eagle-eared viewers will immediately recognize, and I was dying the entire movie because I could not pinpoint it.
That's always fun.
Infuriated me at the end when I was like, yeah, obviously that's who it was. Duh. And it was great, and I want more. And I'll get to that in a minute. But
okay, I'm like, it's
so the movie is him on the train, which also has another killer on the train who's trying to get to this other killer. Then he's joined by other killers on the train who are joined by a couple of guys that have the son of a mob boss and the briefcase that everybody is interested in. So their job is to get the son there without being harmed and the briefcase. But it's so funny. It's so good. A lot of the action is great. Joey King has some real fun bits in it. She was in The Princess.
From The Princess, right?
The Princess. She does not do a ton of fighting here, but she is a integral part of the movie. The highlight of this film, though, without a doubt, is Aaron Taylor Johnson and Brian Tyree Henry.
Oh, really?
As the two brothers, the twins, as they're referred to. Tangerine and Lemon. Funny as hell. Great dialogue between them. The maybe the most pleasant surprise for me was Hiroyuki Sanada, who we all love a good Sanada-san.
Scorpion, right?
Yeah, he is a major part of the movie, and Michael Shannon has a delicious little role in it as well. And the voice on the phone, the entire movie, shows up at the end, is none other than Sandra Bullock. And she's great.
Oh, okay.
The entire time talking to Brad Pitt about, you can do this. This is fine. Don't worry about it. And oh, by the way, one of the gags in this movie is, there is another movie that I absolutely refer to, and I think the director has too, the writer of the movie. The movie Shoot 'Em Up with Clive Owen is in every respect a Looney Tunes movie, right down to the point that the first moment we see Clive Owen's character, he's sitting there eating a carrot because he's Bugs Bunny.
The director's intent.
Right.
Outspoken. Yeah.
In every way, this movie feels like Brad Pitt's character Ladybug is basically an assassin version of Mr. Magoo. Because he can't see without his glasses. He's like he wears glasses the entire time. And the joke he makes, he's like, everywhere I go, people die. I don't mean for it to happen. I'm not trying to kill them. I'm doing this. Something happens. And we see all these things where, yeah, every time he gets involved, a thing happens that just doesn't go well. And you go, what the hell? It's so funny, dude. It's so good. And I don't want to, there's a couple of other people that pop up in the movie that are fun. The dialogue is great. Again, the story is super, super novel. And Brad Pitt, just, you root for him throughout the movie. You're just like, he's having fun, man. He's just having a good time.
Glad to hear it delivers on the trailer. That was a trailer that I saw, and I was like, well, this is either trying way too hard, but if it lands, it's probably pretty great. It's
you got to watch it, man. You should watch it. Totally worth the watch.
It is based on a novel called Maria Beetle, actually.
Yes.
By Kotaro Isaka.
Another graphic novel, a.k.a. big comic book.
Cool.
Yeah.
Glad to hear. That's yeah, I'll have to look at that one.
Yes.
Did I ever say anything on air about Lightyear? I know it's been a while.
Outside of the fact that you watched it, or were going to watch it, I don't. Yeah, I
ended up watching it while I was on vacation, so it's been some time. But yeah, I don't even know why I'm bringing it up. Honestly, do you have any? It's just okay. It's. Especially, I guess, as far as family movies go, your kids are going to like it.
Aggressively fine.
Quite possibly. You have two a little bit worse than that, maybe. Yeah, it's just always a dicey proposition speaking bad about maybe even just a Toy Story franchise movie, because you can tell it's made with love. It's got a positive message. It's funny. Like, there's a cat that kind of saves, a robot cat that kind of saves the entire film. But without that cat, everything else kind of is just fine. It really is just okay to boring. So your kids will like it, but don't expect anything maybe much more.
At this point, the Mitchells and the Machines, Mitchells versus the Machines, whatever that was called, that's like my high watermark for animated movies at this point.
Oh yeah, that doesn't even compare to that. Certainly, go rewatch Mitchells versus the Machines.
That was so good, man.
So here, I'll talk to you about a Rad movie instead.
The movie Rad.
Have you ever seen Rad? That's the one I was going to talk about. Yeah.
You mean the film that introduced the world to Crew Jones?
Crew Jones.
The man who would conquer Hell Track.
I thought I had already seen Rad, but I was confusing it with the seminal Josh Brolin picture Thrashin'. Yes, different exactly.
Film,
thank you.
Which you probably also then confused for Gleaming the Cube.
I didn't know. Gleaming the Cube stands. I feel like that's the one that kind of... I feel like that's the pinnacle of all of these. But yes, Thrashin'. What's the other... I
don't know.
Airborne, maybe? Is that the rollerblading one?
That's great. There's also BMX Bandits, which was fantastic.
Ooh.
With Nicole Kidman.
I'll have to look that one up.
Man, it's Nicole Kidman as like the most Australian you've ever heard her in her life. Like she was more
Australian than the AMC ad?
Yeah. Like she's a kid. She has huge hair. It's amazing.
Okay, all right.
BMX Bandits.
You had me. I'll check it out. No, yeah, I had not seen Rad at all. It turns out. First and foremost, you must know
this movie makes.
How long has it been actually for you?
I don't know, a couple years now.
Okay, because there's been the 4K release is fairly recent.
Yeah,
right.
I know. I need to get it.
the bikes, the actual bikes in that movie are rad. They are
so dope, dude.
Exceptionally
so
rad.
Cool. That movie,
I was having such just because that was the thing you wanted in the 80s, right? That was the thing you lusted after. I remember the day I got my light blue bike with white tires and mags.
Dude, BMX bikes, man.
It got stolen, I think, within a month after that. That's how good it was. But all of the bikes in this movie, they are those bikes, and they're so fun and cool to look at. Just immediate nostalgia.
Yeah,
Man.
totally.
Other than that, yes, just an absolute fever dream. Just a complete. It's what's my high water mark for this? It's
I don't know.
Repo Man in its recontextualization of the entire world into one concept. You know, like the world revolves around BMX, and which. Yeah.
If it doesn't, nothing in this movie makes sense
at all.
Because
the magnates are all about. It's actually, I think Mongoose is the big bad.
They're essentially the bad guys. You've got the cop who's kind of half good, half bad, and
he's great.
He's like, all right, well, I'll be okay if you darn kids doing
one of those. Yep,
doing your thing, and then you've got them like. They do something on a construction site, and everybody's like, "No worries." Like,
yeah, oh yeah, you're talking about where they're just biking around town.
Yeah, and
the cop does figure into that because he goes
but he chases them, but it's like so half-hearted.
The construction site, they kind of like he's on one side of the road and they're on the other, and Crew is able to avoid him by way of his biking over logs and stuff. So, the cop just kind of sits there on his motorcycle, shaking his head with a faint smile.
Yeah, it's. Amazing. Yeah, this is a weird part of the world where BMX was the only thing that occurred. Nobody else saw TV after. But
good.
And it works.
Good. It does work. And I know it's a silly movie. I think I maybe heard about this, or the thing that got me to look it up again, even though I thought I had already seen it, was how did this get made? So
sure.
It shows up in such circles as that. But is just endlessly entertaining. Like I sat down with my daughter to watch this. Actually, she watched the whole thing with me, and about 5 minutes in, because I've managed to maintain this mystery. I'm still kind of a question mark when it comes to showing my daughter movies. Like she never knows if it's going to be, like The Conjuring 2 or
Daredevil.
Speaking of which, I couldn't find the Ed Brubaker episode where he talks about Blast of Silence, but I did find, and it's probably still out there past the paywall, the episode where Ed Brubaker comes on to talk about Daredevil.
Oh, that's the one I thought you were. I have that one on my phone.
Yeah. I haven't listened to it yet, but no. But I sat down with my daughter, and about 5 minutes in, she looks at me. She's like, "Is this like Hot Rod?" And I said, "Absolutely."
Yes,
it is.
It's unintentionally Hot Rod.
So she actually unironically enjoyed it. I mean, I did as well, but
did you pause the movie and then explain about what like paying colleges for your child to get into them? Did you talk about that with Lori Loughlin and explain how she's
you're right,
how she commits fraud on a daily basis? Or
no, I did not.
You didn't mention
subject.
You didn't broach the subject that Aunt Becky is a fraudster.
She also does already know her from Fuller House. In fact,
well, damn it, back do bow.
Yeah, I don't want to burst that bubble just yet. She's good in this movie as well.
Does she know Bob Saget's
absolutely. I mean, underutilized in every sense of the 80s word. Like she's on the one hand better than him. Like she's an established professional BMXer with Mongoose who
That's right.
doesn't really ever compete or show her stuff. They do, like she's doubled for any of her bike work for the most part, but she does get to show off by way of her double. Yeah, I know. Sorry to break it to you. She does get to show off by way of the bicycle dance.
You'll destroy decades of love and admiration for Lori Loughlin's BMX. You'll destroy that and just casually without care. But your daughter, who's barely 11 or whatever, you're like, oh, I don't want to destroy Full House for her. You, sir, are disgusting.
But I think it's all offset by that beautiful bike dance in the middle of the film.
So
it's kind of the centerpiece of the film, really.
It's
if you want to.
Incredible. Where do you want to go to prom? And when you go, don't you want to go on your BMX?
It's kind of legitimately beautiful, though.
It's
Is
really
a strange thing.
it's well done. Yeah,
It's quite
it's
alluring.
I would
even.
say it's the Dirty Dancing of BMX.
It is. It's very nice. Which again, it just feeds into the whole like the whole like the bicyclists are heroes. Like the entire world revolves around, it's a great fun ride. Go check it out.
Okay.
Pleasantly surprised if you can turn off or suspend a couple specific beliefs.
Or instead of suspending them, just engage in them. Just let them wash over you. Become one with the world of BMX.
Dude, I know we're halfway joking. I feel like we could do an entire show because I listen to a few other movie podcasts and certainly after we review something, I kind of dip into what the reviews are. And while our Black Adam show has not come out just yet, I think it will probably before this. So just keep an eye out. For Noirvember, in fact, kind of fits Black Adam.
Black Adam.
Man, we could do an entire show just about like letting some of that go. I mean, we criticize. I do certainly have movies, and this whole thing is a taste game. Obviously, there's no accounting for that and forgetting about it. Certainly, if you're doing it right. But the amount that it seems like some people aren't able to go to a movie that is a thing, like I feel like every movie is allowed this at the very least, is that you approach it on its own terms. Like, yeah, after that, it might make some mistakes, and, maybe there's some plot issues or character or whatever, get into that. But if you're going to one movie expecting one thing and kind of critiquing the entire experience on that, and that's off, like nothing else kind of matters. Like it doesn't. Still opinion, yes, whatever.
No,
but I feel like if I'm going to a movie like Black Adam or any of these, I feel like the tide is turning on comic book movies to some extent. That's probably part of it. But I feel like if I'm going to those, I still want to evaluate them on their terms or on certain terms at the very least.
So no, you want to talk about something in neutral terms, right? Like you but the thing is,
well, that's
even that is the whole thing is kind of an issue, right? Because art is always what you bring to it.
That's what I'm saying. Neutral or objective is kind of a misnomer because there is no such thing. Yeah, so
right.
I wouldn't even say
you can't do it. But it's the I know what you're saying. You want to look at it from a more a perspective. You can look at it from multiple critical perspectives. From the does this movie fit into my idea of this should be on the Criterion Collection? It's a some monumental.
Is it cinema? Kind of not even that though too, because it feels like you get old and you lose something. And part of it can be enjoying movies like Black Adam. Maybe that's being ageist, but that's what it feels like to me. Like if I ever run into an issue, and again, I've not liked comic book movies, so
but that's not.
Where's the
thing.
Line? I don't know.
Well, again, but I think that what we're talking about, it's again that thing where like you can't take a movie like Black Adam and have a serious conversation while comparing it to. And we'll go with just the most popular thing in the world to compare things to, Citizen Kane.
Oof.
Right?
Okay, I guess that was bound to happen.
You can't. I mean, it has to. But part of the joke about using Citizen Kane for any of these things is saying, well, it's no Citizen Kane. Part of the joke being that, yeah, if you're trying to compare it to Citizen Kane, you're probably going to fall short. But if we're going to compare it to Shazam from 1943 on similar terms and go, okay, sure, that's a conversation you almost can have. But you have to compare like to like on a certain level, even with film. Of course, subjectivity, you can say Planet of the Apes is better than Citizen Kane. Yeah, I agree. Planet of the Apes is better than Citizen Kane. I'll watch Planet of the Apes multiple times again in the rest of my life. You know what I won't be watching multiple times again for the rest of my life? But you know what I'm saying, right? Like, so when I part of it does involve you having to know what you're getting into. If you don't know what Doctor Strange and the Mountains of Madness or the whatever the hell that's called, I honestly just can't even think of what it's called right now. But if you don't know what Doctor Strange Mom is going into it, yeah, I mean, you're going to get thrown off a little bit. If you're not comparing it to other comic book movies, I don't think you're comparing it. Like, I don't think you're giving it a fair shake, right? And it's the same thing with, you want to watch movies and compare them to like movies because, again, comparing Blast of Silence to The Naked Gun.
It's obvious which one is better.
Yeah, we all know. We all know.
I'm not going to say it out loud, but
we don't have to. But even the 33 1/3 better than Blast of Silence. So I think I kind of think like that's the direction. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
anyways.
no, I mean, like I said, I don't have an answer is the thing. We could do a show on it and probably still not have an answer, but it'd be fun to talk it out. Because again, I'm also the first person that'll tell you why Citizen Kane is fascinating. You know, you're right. I probably won't go rewatch it as much as some absolute cinephile. But I get that when it came, you know, and what Orson Welles was doing, and oh my gosh, like that's insanity, you know, but I can also watch Black Adam and be like, but man, maybe I'm just describing fanboyism. I don't know, but
but again, it's you're just talking about different. It's not even fanboyism. It's just a different mindset. You know, when you watch Citizen Kane. Okay, how many times are you showing somebody Citizen Kane, or Citizen Kane is being shown to somebody who's never seen it, and they're not being told about the accolades and how this is the greatest movie, and how this movie made changes, and how this and that and the other thing. And you go into that movie, like you're watching that movie, and if you are not, like there are a number of reasons why you could watch that movie and go, this is boring as hell, and I hate it. Why did people love this movie?
Which, again, I fully disagree with. You know, there are plenty of those takes on Twitter, like, oh, you know, I'm sorry if it's unpopular, but I just got to say it. Movies made before 1960 are just bad. You know, that's
like it's stupid. That's just just straight up stupid.
I get it. Yeah, okay.
But the comparison, like, I still think you can have valid comparison conversations between modern day stuff and past stuff. But when you're talking about things like that, I think it is important that you do, at least for yourself, kind of figure out where you're delineating, right? Like, why am I comparing? Why? And that's the question. Why would I compare this to that? Why am I comparing this to this?
Well, certainly in the comparison too, but yeah, I guess maybe I'm just a little burnt on what seems like
the ability to have fun at the movies.
in maybe, for lack of a better term, maybe.
Yeah.
And yeah,
no,
that's a hard thing to accuse anybody of, certainly, again, in the taste game. So
I don't know that that's so much the issue as I think, well, I don't know. It's a conversation.
Yeah. And I don't think we have the answer, or maybe there is not one, but
no, there's an answer.
It's just been on the front of my mind, and you set me off. So it's your fault, technically.
There's an answer, and we can find it.
If you've enjoyed anything you've heard here today, you can find us at podcast@bookclubformovies.com. If you want to email, Facebook, and Twitter, we're still there as long as it exists, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I may
as the person who does do 99.9% of the actual Twittering for Book Club for Movies, Matt. Yeah, that's you.
Oh yeah, it's really more. I mean, we'll stay on there until the thing dies, but I'm not necessarily also the person who won't accidentally get us suspended.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Yeah, sure. So stick around for that. Also, Patreon, as we mentioned, please, if you can afford a little $2 for that bottom tier, we would make you our eternal friends, and you get access to what's a fair amount of posts there already. So
we got lots of content, more coming, and we're thinking every day about you and your needs.
Oh yeah, if you want us to think about you every day, that is the quickest, absolute way to do it.
I wake up in the morning and I immediately say the names of all of our patrons. And I give them a good Charlotte, or what is it? A good,
good
I don't know. There's some
that
kind
is what it's called. No, you got it. Yeah,
you wake up, you give somebody a good Charlotte,
a My Chemical Romance, if you will,
and to you, sir.
And we go about our day. So thank you for all of you who have done that so far. You are the best, and we do enjoy you. And come back next week for Out of the Past. And we'll keep Noirvember going. And quite possibly Black Adam by then. although it will go out at least a week early to patrons. So,
Black Adam.
lots of stuff on the horizon. Come back. Thank you. And goodbye.
Bye.